The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Jolene Schaefer and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, B2B e-commerce for 2021 and beyond, presented by Jack Evans of SimCloud. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment during the presentation to answer our one poll question and after the presentation to answer our one survey question. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. We've invited SimCloud here today because they are the industry experts on e-commerce. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. So we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jack.
Thank you, Jolene, and nice to see and virtually meet everybody. Getting used to this as the new norm and definitely welcome the opportunity to present everyone. So as Jolene mentioned, we're going to be doing a brief Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions that come through, feel free to message in that question box on your dashboard there. No question is lesser than the other, so feel free to ask anything you guys want. I'm happy to hit it in stride. And if it's more of a specific question and we don't get time to it today, I'm happy to follow up afterwards. So definitely want the engagement, welcome the engagement, and these things are always better when you guys are involved and give me feedback and comments and specific talking points. But just to put a voice or face with a voice here, so I'm Jack Evans, as Joey mentioned. I'm an account executive at SimCloud. Really, my role is to work with prospective customers on business requirements, kind of key objectives, and then building a software infrastructure that aligns with those key objectives. So, again, my role is strictly limited to software, but also have an ability to work with our professional services group or other third-party implementers to give kind of an overall project vision. And like I said, my role is to provide the product that fits those overall project requirements and program visions. So I'm going to walk through some slides here today, but I did want to start with an attendee poll. So Joey, if you don't mind launching that, I'll give everybody just a couple seconds or a minute or so to hit that question, and then we can keep going through.
It looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with launching it, Jack, but I'll keep working on it for another few seconds.
Okay, and no worries. This is not the first time technology has outsmarted me, so we can certainly just keep moving. There, it looks like it just popped up on screen here.
Perfect. To what extent is your business pursuing e-commerce solutions? Please select one of the below. Not looking, actively looking, aggressively looking, or not applicable. We'll give that a few seconds.
Cool. And my assumption is that most of our audience here fits into one of those two middle buckets, but definitely welcome the feedback and always like knowing who I'm kind of talking to on the call.
All right, and it looks like we have 33% who aren't looking, 33% who are aggressively looking, and 33% who say it's not applicable.
Perfect. Well, thank you for launching that. And for the people who are not looking, but maybe here in kind of a fat gathering or research phase, definitely like where your head is and think definitely taking advantage of, resources like SWK and, their ISVs are the right approach. So just an overview of today's agenda. So going to hit a quick slide deck. Not going to be too lecture based today. I know we all at 1 o'clock Eastern on a Thursday probably don't need to be lectured to via PowerPoint slides, but did want to just kind of tee up overall landscape. I think COVID is obviously a major driver in that evolving landscape, but Going to quickly hit just some things that we see there, kind of where I see most customers or prospective customers falling into working with those people on the front lines here. I'm going to talk through kind of strategies for success across the board on e-commerce, and really it applies with other ISV solutions as well. Going to pivot into how you as a prospective customer can get rolling with SimCloud, get value from the application, and then going to hit just a very high level brief demo to put some product in front of, again, my slides today. So going to get rolling here. And I'm not going to speak to all these slides. You guys can obviously read them for yourselves here. But what I thought was important to do, particularly now that we're about 12 months into COVID, was look at kind of retrospectively, what are some of the evolving trends that we're seeing, and not we being SimCloud, we as B2B industry thought leaders are seeing. And a couple things just at a high level that I've noticed and that the research supports, obviously, is that there have been changes to overall employee and workforce structure. So maybe that's a percentage of your employees now being remote. Maybe that's changing your office structure, so downsizing. Maybe you've got administrative offices now versus where you had a full kind of everything evolving around your warehouse. So changes in structure, changes in selling strategies that are aligned with those structural shifts of where your employees are and how they're doing business. And then ultimately, all of that has driven hyper growth in e-commerce and a bigger aptitude to do business online. So I think the biggest stat that stood out to me within kind of the landscape of what you're seeing on screen here is that 70% of B2B decision makers are open to making online purchases over $50,000. So that would be something that I think is a major pivot in how people have traditionally done business. B2B e-commerce at its core is designed for transactional style businesses, a lot more lower revenue or lower quantity on the cost side of things, transactions, but trying to streamline that volume. But as we've seen, over the last year, people were having to do business online. The appetite to make purchases that are bulk, large purchases is only going to continue to increase as, again, people get more and more used to online access, and as kind of the next generation of business decision makers and thought leaders continues to come into the forefront here. So just some general stats, and like I said, not going to bore you to death with research there. But one of the things that I thought would be good to start with is for me, sitting on the front line, so again, being an account executive, a sales consultant working with businesses, when people come to my desk and we engage, they typically fall into one of these four buckets, and most commonly the middle two. But the first one is people who traditionally have not believed that e-commerce is a fit for their market. And there's definitely validity behind that, and I don't pretend to know anybody's business or industry better than they do. But again, for people who have traditionally viewed e-commerce as not a fit for their business, whether that's due to customer persona types, customer behavior, again, I think over the last year, particularly as it's been forced, this not my market category has been, really proved to be outdated, if you will. And so again, that's kind of a starting point. People that don't have a website, that don't do any active e-commerce, everything's done via phone, fax, email, in-person interactions. But again, that's a not overly common, but I definitely work with businesses that fit in that category. The second bucket here would be people that have a website. So maybe it's just a corporate site that tells who you are or what you do. It's definitely typically viewed as more of a marketing asset. So, your team has it, deploys it, manages it, but again, it's not used to transact any business. It's more of a demand generation tool, or even just a validity kind of website to validate everything that your company and employees are communicating externally. The third bucket here are the e-commerce players. I would say this is, these two, but specifically the e-commerce players are people that I'm working with a lot these days. So they have a fit for e-commerce. They're doing it in some capacity. Maybe they have just a direct-to-consumer site. Maybe they have a custom kind of backend that they've built behind a login for users to come in, get orders placed, etc. But the big thing here in this e-commerce players category is that they're not necessarily realizing full value from the solution because they are not fully integrated with their other business systems. So again, that can be a non-integrated direct-to-consumer site that you're taking orders through. Your team's having to pick up and rekey into the ERP system. Again, it may be a custom backend portal that requires daily imports and exports on pricing, inventory, and things that your wholesale or B2B customer types need. But again, these two middle buckets are very common for me. And ultimately, my goal is to identify people that are wanting to get into this e-commerce leader space. And if they're close to that or already there, making sure that we're fully optimizing that solution. So e-commerce leaders would be the people that are doing direct-to-consumer selling, they're doing business-to-business selling, they're doing it all online in an integrated environment. They're letting their ERP system drive the data in that. So updated pricing, customer-specific pricing, inventory, product availability, all that good stuff. So these would be kind of the four buckets that I see clients falling into. Again, my goal is to take anybody that is in one of the first three buckets and really drive them ultimately into that fourth bucket of being an e-commerce leader. So just some background and kind of what's changed over the last year and where people and many of you on today's call probably fall into one of those buckets, particularly the first three. But just wanted to give some general context there. The second agenda section here is really going to cross over independent of SimCloud, independent really even of e-commerce, and can apply across the board for software solutions. But as my lens and subject matter expertise goes, it would apply specifically to e-commerce. But the first thing you're seeing here is that you need to pursue the project with alignment. So going back to the previous section, people that view a website or an online selling platform as just a marketing tool or just an additional way for customers to get information. If it's viewed that way within the organization, it's gonna be really tough to drive the customer adoption needed to get full value and realize your full ROI from the project. So again, your leadership team, your sales team, your collections team, even the warehouse staff, all need to view the website and ultimately, website, e-commerce, portal-based solution, whatever use case you have, it needs to be viewed as a vital part of your operations and a vital part of your go-to-market strategy. So again, it can be as simple as just communicating that externally and making sure, again, customers are aware of it. It doesn't need to be viewed as a threat by your sales team. It needs to be viewed as an asset that's going to allow everybody to do their job better. Ultimately, the second bucket here, I think, is arguably the most important, but taking a phased approach. So one thing that I've seen, that we've seen as a business, is people trying to do too much all at once and putting together a scope that's not attainable or realistic given their resource constraints. So one of the things that I always do during my sales discovery process is, let's get together a list of key objectives or any objectives, put those into a general list, and then let's identify what is a phase one requirement, what is needed to get any value from the solution. Can we pivot? Can we do a limited scope in a phase one and then scale the application up from there? So again, trying to avoid doing everything at once and creating a unrealistic scope of work is going to be key to making sure you get that short-term success, generating that ROI, which is going to allow you to continue investing in the solution. The third bucket here, leveraging your ERP. You heard me previously mention this, and obviously working with SWK, everyone on today's call does have that ERP backbone and understands the value of their ERP system. But again, additional software solutions, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's warehouse management, all of that needs to tie into your ERP system. You don't want to create disparate systems that are non-integrated, that have various data points, different data points. You want the ERP system, which is supposed to and does house all of your business critical data. It follows, best practices for your business. You need to build software solutions that replicate that data and that keep both systems up to date. So leveraging that ERP is key. And at SimCloud, that really is where we highly differentiate in the market, is through our ERP integration and the ability to scale with you as you scale your ERP up. So coming to the latest versions, adding new enhancements, accounting for UDFs, all of those things are how our solution is built and really what the backbone of our application is. And then the final thing here is adoption. So not Field of Dreams. It's not an if you build it, they will come situation. You really need to build the solution with all of the first three buckets in mind, making sure that you're designing it around what customers want, need, and are asking for, and then provide tools and incentives and reasons for them to adopt the application. So part of our onboarding and implementation process here at SimCloud is identifying, your subset of beta customers to come in and test the application. Make sure you're building it to fit your customers, making sure that it's going to be built with what their needs are in mind. So, again, you can build a rocket ship, but if you got nobody to man it and no gas in the ship, then it just becomes a big cost bucket. So adoption is key in e-commerce, especially where you have external users. But again, really with any software solution, I think you can apply these four kind of success strategies. And again, they kind of cross-cut all the different vendor solutions that SWK may be exposing to you guys. So coming in here into our updated pricing model, and what I would really encourage everyone to focus on, and kind of going back here, really what my focus of this section is going to be is how you as a user can get started with SimCloud. So we do have an updated pricing model. It definitely aligns with a subscription kind of SaaS model that all of us are probably pretty accustomed to, whether that's in our day-to-day life or, again, in a business setting. So what you're seeing here, again, is going to be no fixed software cost outside of our initial connector fee. We're not going to be charging upfront for any professional service allocation. So again, I just always like presenting our pricing model. We have 4 packages that are designed to fit a variety of business needs. So maybe you just need a simple AR portal. You want to allow for invoicing to be done online, visibility, and an ability to pay online. And maybe that's all you need, and you can fit into our small business edition. Or maybe you need, 5 different websites all integrated with your backend ERP system. You need them to be public facing and behind a login. You have a variety of add-on enhancements you need. Again, we can handle that via our enterprise edition and everything in between. So I always like pointing out, I would say 75, 80% of projects that I scope fall into that standard edition, which is highlighted here. But again, I always like highlighting the flexibility that we have. I think it is reflected in our customer base where, again, we have people that are doing very basic use case functions with the application, and then people that are really, really blowing out the application and taking advantage of everything that we can provide. Again, all with that ERP integration in mind. So what's included in a SimCloud quote, and I think this is something that really speaks to some flexibility that you'll have as a prospective or current customer when you work through your implementation process. So again, from me, you will get your SimCloud application. It'll have the feature sets that are needed to accomplish your use cases and objectives. Again, that can be as simple as just simple AR functionality. It can be as big as a public-facing site replacement. So again, my job is to spec out what you need and deliver that. The Connect package is going to include our ERP integration and our site build. So again, our team will build the application. They will go in and connect it to your ERP system. They'll do the testing behind the scenes to make sure it's functional and the data's flowing appropriately. And then ultimately, you'll get into the onboarding and implementation section. And one thing I do like to call out as it relates to the onboarding and implementation is the ability to have flexibility, and I'm saying ability a lot there, but the flexibility that you'll have as you work through implementation. So if you have the resources in-house to execute yourself, again, we have critical roles, and I'll get to those in a minute. And if you fill those seats, why not keep that cost in-house? Pay us for the application, lean on us for general kind of consulting expertise and tools. But let your team execute the project themselves, keeping that cost in-house. Another option that you have there, in addition to SimCloud's professional services, is you can lean on SWK and your account managers there. They can even sit in project management, general consulting seats. So again, working with your ERP reseller, working with SimCloud, working with your own organization, and potentially third parties that you may have at your disposal, again, gives you a lot of flexibility during that onboarding process. Now, what you're seeing on screen here is specific to success with SimCloud. So I've referenced, general e-commerce success strategies. But we also have kind of a roadmap to success that we promote throughout kind of the sales process and ultimately the implementation process. But the first step is, again, getting you connected, getting the site built, getting your ERP hooked in, getting your data in the application. From there, you work through an implementation checklist that's going to be specific to your project. So what features are in scope? What are the use cases we're looking to accomplish here? And that's a checklist approach. You just kind of work through that within your team and make sure, again, you're accounting for all of the use cases that you have as part of that overall vision. Then you have your rollout process. That may be kind of a ripping of the Band-Aid and just turning it on one day and seeing what happens. That may be an iterative approach where you're working with, some beta customers, some beta employees, but all of that goes into the ultimate rollout process. And then the ongoing platform support. So working with our team to make sure, you're keeping it integrated with the newest version of Sage 100, or making sure that as your customer needs evolve, again, you have the support needed to roll out those new feature sets. So on the left here, you're just kind of seeing general success strategies. So making sure you're understanding the process, making sure you understand the key roles and fill those key roles, and have a clearly defined goal so that we can determine this has been successful, this has not been successful, and then ultimately, why was it successful or not successful, and making sure that we have clear accountability on who owns what. You've heard mention the last couple of slides here of critical roles, and this is something that over 20 plus years in that B2B e-commerce space that we have seen is key to making sure that the project realizes whatever that vision is. So these are kind of critical roles. Again, these can be filled internally by you as a SimCloud customer. This can be filled by third-party implementation partners. This can be fulfilled by even SWK representatives, or you can lean on SimCloud professional services for some of these items on screen here as well. But the program manager, that seat or that role is responsible for the overall vision, both short-term and long-term as it relates to the project. So what are our phase 1 objectives? What are our phase 2 objectives? What are some things that we must have? What are some things that we would like to have in a future state? All around vision, all around, again, making sure that you're building that scalable solution. The IT and network admin, and this is a seat that we typically do see resellers sit in. Again, they have that ERP sophistication. They are, the domain expert, so to speak. We at SimCloud don't pretend to be ERP specialists. We are SimCloud specialists, and SimCloud is designed for your ERP. So that's kind of where we come in. But again, IT network admin, making sure that we're getting the access we need during implementation to get the ERP integration done, making sure that you have familiarity with the back-end system on the SimCloud side and an ability to do general site maintenance, configure settings. That all kind of ties into that IT network admin expert. The financial data and business process expert speaks for itself, but really this is somebody who is understanding both what your key objectives are from a business application standpoint. So we want to streamline customer service operations. We want to streamline our invoicing process. Understanding the objectives and the business processes behind those objectives, and then working with the other critical roles to make sure, and working with SimCloud to make sure again, that the software and the technology fits those processes that you're trying to optimize, for lack of a better word. And then the bottom two here are going to be specific to the phases. So your project manager and your lead implementer are going to be very focused on implementation and accomplishing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 short-term objectives. So again, those are going to be people that are in the weeds in the product. They're going to be executing on the work that needs to be done. And so again, that's equally critical to any of the other roles on here. One thing I will call out, sometimes this can be a little bit overwhelming and concerning when you're looking at it from a perspective of, oh, here's 5 seats that I have to fill. I will say, working with clients on the front end, very rarely does somebody have 5 specific people for each of these roles. Typically, you'll see 2 or 3 people on a project team sitting in 1 or 2 of these seats apiece. But what I always like highlighting here is the functional expertise and domain knowledge that's needed to ultimately have that project success. So we're talking about self-service onboarding, flexible onboarding, the ability to use non-SimCloud resources during implementation, and that's great. But if you don't have the documentation, if you don't have the training materials, if you don't have the support materials that you need to be successful, again, you're ultimately going to have to drive that cost up. And so from our standpoint, we've rolled out a help center kind of end of last year, end of 2020. And this is as valuable of an asset as I can communicate. I mean, this is everything from what you can expect during the sales process all the way through the implementation process. It has function-specific documentation. So how do I configure this? How do I configure that? Anyone that's worked with me on a project probably gets a little bit overwhelmed by the Help Center content because, again, I use this throughout my process. You know, are we getting close to a project turnover? If so, let's go ahead and identify what next steps look like. Let me give you familiarity on, you know, what does an implementation order to go live process look like? What are the activities that are done? What is the timeline behind all that? So the Help Center is a great resource, and again, one that allows you to be successful independent of leveraging our Pro Services group. So that's just kind of how you can get started. Again, I know that's a lot of information in there, but again, I think it's always nice to have some documentation and formal acknowledgement of, hey, here's how you're successful with SimCloud or with another ISV solution. So I'm gonna hop into a quick demo environment. Again, not gonna go in the weeds or get too detailed on any one specific item here, but just gonna walk through kind of a typical high level demo. And as it relates to our product, so what you're seeing on screen here is the Grind Supply Company. This is a fake coffee distributor that we've kind of created to give our demo some look and feel, some real life context. All of our demo environments are integrated with a backend Sage install. So this is the environment in which our product is built and deployed. And I always like hitting this during sales calls and during webinars like today. So what you're seeing on screen here is our public facing site, and this is a retail template. You do not have to leverage this. You can solely use us as a B2B portal, but we can also do site replacement. So, you know, this is always the starting point. So whether it's your corporate website, you know, maybe it's a Shopify site, maybe it's just a WordPress site that tells who you are, what you do, we can link to and from those applications, whether that's a sign-in link, again, that we've built or that's latched onto your existing site. And when a user logs in, again, this is going to be a B2B user, they're able to go to our B2B dashboard. And again, that username and password that you saw to log in is going to be associated or tied to a customer record or customer table inside of Sage 100. So a couple quick things here. Obviously, logo, color scheme will all match your branding. If this is a site, so for example, say this is your existing corporate site and they're going to link into our application, there will be a handoff there, but we can prefix that URL so that the user has no security issues or concerns. Want to make sure that all of your users are comfortable hitting the application. They don't feel like they're being navigated somewhere else that they're not supposed to be. And then again, we want to make sure that all of this portal-driven experience is designed with their data in mind. So what you're seeing up top is at the start, product discovery. So I'll hit a quick product in a second, but you can deploy product catalogs, have a general product and price list that users can go straight down, search SKUs, quickly find the product that they need. The favorites list concept here is a very commonly used application within the product. So favorites list can be weekly, monthly, quarterly orders. Maybe you have clients that are retail clients, and so they're restocking shelves and they buy 12 items from you, and so they just keep those 12 items in a favorites list. Anytime they need to procure more goods, they come in, select the quantity that they need, and move on. So definitely more of a quick ordering function there. And then the middle section here in your bottom left icon are all different ways that we're going to leverage Sage data to bring the right products in front of users at the right time here. So again, we want to make sure that there's not too much shopping that needs to be done, particularly kind of in this B2B framework. We want to make sure, again, that people can get in, get the information that they need, get that order placed and get on with their day. I'm going to hit one quick product in here. And this will be kind of the extent to which I do a deep dive today. But one quick product in here, and what I like highlighting is that name, SKU, and pricing logic are all going to come directly from that ERP system. So you're going to see general MSRP pricing or list pricing here, and then this customer's negotiated rate. If you are using quantity price breaks or have that configured in Sage, we can bring those up as well. So the site was built to replicate all of that standard Sage logic. Anytime you make a change inside of Sage 100, it's going to update this pricing on the site in real time. So your team won't need to go in and do any site management or imports or exports. It'll keep both systems up to date. Description obviously can be configured and managed on the site. Related products, so this is looking for cross-sell and upsell opportunities. That can also be managed on the site as well. And then a user simply can add items to cart, whether it's from this page or from another one of our product pages, and get that cart populated and get on with their day. Coming further down here, and that was a good kind of transition into ordering and what options users have from an order standpoint. The big thing I like hitting here is this bulk add to cart option. So this definitely is more of a B2B mindset where your customers, they know that your products, they're purchasing the same things again and again. Maybe they even have a paper catalog that they've always ordered out of. So they can come in here, they can use type ahead functionality to quickly add items by SKU. They can do a bulk add, so you can add items either via CSV or just go line by line and type items into the system, SKU, quantity. And then you can also tap into those favorites list, previous sales orders, and previous invoices to grab products. I'm going to quickly hit one item, and I'll walk through a checkout process. So this item's added to my cart, if it will load. And once an item is added to cart, all I got to do is go to the final checkout page here. All of the shipment options are going to be based off of whatever shipment you guys have configured in Sage. A very common use case that I have here would be to have all of these zeroed out, and then the user basically does all of their shipment on their account. Your team adds the cost upon invoice. We can also tap into our standard integrations with FedEx and UPS to bring those rates back during the checkout process as well. So part of, again, my sales process is trying to dig in, understand what you're doing from a shipping standpoint, and then making sure we can replicate that on the site. The final thing I like hitting here as it relates to products and ordering is the checkout method. So again, we can accommodate terms-based customers. So if you have net 15, net 30 customers, we can use those terms codes in Sage to drive their checkout experience. So they can purchase as an invoice. All they would need to do is come in, type in that PO number, and again, they can get the order into your system as a sales order, and then they can expect that invoice to come on the other side. If you do have customers, whether that's in a B2B landscape or in a public-facing site, we would allow them to only check out with a credit or debit card, or if you guys wanted to allow for ACH payments, we can configure that as well. So a lot of flexibility on getting orders in, making sure that that order process fits the user and is typical to what they're accustomed to doing. So, if you have a net 30 customer, and the only way that they can order online is to pay at the time of purchase, well, there's going to be a big roadblock to adoption there. So I'm actually going to place this as a credit card order just for simplicity's sake. And then the final thing here is I can either place this order or I can save it as a quote. And within the framework of today's demo, just think of a saved quote as a saved cart that would be stored in your SimCloud application. So order gets placed. Again, this is going to flow back into the ERP system. No rekeying requirements from your team. We can also set up system email notifications to maybe go to the warehouse team to let them know that an order's come in and it's ready for pick, pack, and ship. Maybe it goes to your customer service team or the sales rep tied to that account. But again, we want to do anything we can to increase visibility on both the customer and the employee side into what's happening within the application. So this checkout page here, again, it's just going to confirm order details. A receipt will be automatically sent to the customer. You can see who it was shipped to, who it was billed to, who placed the order. So again, just wanting to increase that visibility and make sure everyone's aware of when these orders are coming in, especially if you're new to e-commerce and you're not used to orders getting into the ERP system without being manually entered. So That's kind of the action. So being able to find products, being able to get products added to a cart, being able to check out based on your terms. The second layer to this is really going to be around account visibility. So visibility into your order history, visibility into your invoice history. And so I'll kind of start on the order side here. So we're going to be able to bring back all orders. So that's not going to be just web orders. It's going to be everything that lives inside of that customer record in Sage. We're going to bring back out of the box 24 months of customer history and allow users to come in and see order details. So the goal here being trying to eliminate questions into your customer service team of, hey, what was on my most recent order? Hey, what's the status of my most recent order? Has this shipped yet? You know, what was my cost on this good last time? So you can come in and see all of that in very granular detail. This is all sales order data that's just being bent or manipulated into our table structure on the site. So this is going to be something that your team would be used to seeing, data points that are consistent across the board. They can see the line items associated with that order. If there's an invoice tied to it, they're going to see that there is an invoice and when that invoice was originated and when it's due. And then if there's a shipment tied to the order, we can have that populated as well. So if it's FedEx or UPS, we can bring that tracking number up and link off into the FedEx or UPS tracking system. If it was shipped via LTL or some other shipment method, obviously we wouldn't have a tracking number there, but you can see the ship via code and then any comments that apply to the overall shipment itself. So that would be kind of a way that users can come in, get visibility into those orders and past orders. One thing I didn't hit in there is that they can quickly reorder from a previous order. So typical workflow there. You know, what was on that last order? I think I need the same thing. Let me confirm, quickly reorder, get back to my day-to-day job and my other job responsibilities. And then the final component of this is the invoicing side of it. So you want to make sure first and foremost that your team or your customers can see their invoice data. So visibility is the first step to making sure you're getting collections done. Right here, you're just kind of seeing some general kind of column-based details. You know, when's it due? What's the status on it? Is it paid? Is it open? What order was it tied to? And so again, you want to allow them to come in, see those invoice level details. Is it due? If it's not due yet, when is it due? What was associated with that? You know, have I received shipment for it yet? You know, if it's 93 days past due and you still haven't received the order, well, maybe you don't want to pay that invoice. But essentially, you want to increase visibility and then ultimately give users a way to pay these invoices online. Now, what you're going to notice is I came in on one specific invoice, which is this one on bottom here. But this account, and hopefully nobody's AR balance looks like this, but this account has a significant open balance. Now we want to collect the $2,203 for this specific invoice, but we also want to let them know, hey, we'd like to collect all of it, or we'd at least like to collect as much as we can based off whatever budget the client has. And so again, you're going to see an ability to check multiple boxes there. Allow for payments via credit card or ACH, bank account, wire payments. And you can manage all of that on the site front, or we can leverage the logic that you have configured for that customer. If it's a credit card, it'll be vaulted in the system. All they got to do is just come in, apply that verification code, make that payment. And if you are working with one of the 3 processors that we integrate with, so that would be Paya, Paya, Sage Exchange, all in one, the native Sage payment processing application. That would be the first one. The second one would be APS, and the third would be CBS, Century Business Solutions. If you're using one of those 3 payment gateways, we can actually tokenize online payments, pass in cash receipts on invoices into the ERP system, and streamline that part of the process for you as well. So kind of a walkthrough there on general quote to cash process, you know, finding products, getting products ordered, being able to see that order history, ultimately pay that invoice. That's kind of the workflow that you're seeing here on the B2B portal side. The last thing that I'll make reference to is the account management functionality. So maybe you have a new shipping address, or maybe you've added a new retail location as a customer. you can quickly come in, add those to the account. If anything's changed for the billing information, you can make those updates as well. Maybe you have a new primary contact on the account. You need to update that name and contact info. So again, just another way that we're trying to provide customers options on how to service their account on mundane, basic functions versus having to call in, email in, tie up your team just to get simple things done. So that is, again, pretty high level. Would love to drill in further kind of in a one-on-one conversation with anybody on today's call, but I'm going to hop back over into my presentation deck here. Jolene, don't know if we've had any questions come through, but I will turn it back over to you to kind of administer the finalizing portion of this, and definitely appreciate everyone bearing with me on the presentation deck as well as the live demo.
Thank you, Jack. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the question section of your GoToWebinar. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have a subject matter expert here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. We did have a couple questions come through during the presentation, Jack. The first being, what ERPs does your solution integrate with?
So right now we are focused exclusively on the Sage 100 market. However, we do have existing customers in Sage 300, 500, X3, and we are also within the coming calendar year, so Q3, Q4 of this year, we'll be opening up to some additional ERP systems. So more information on that to come. Obviously, your SWK reps will be the first to know as we kind of expand that ERP market, but 100 is right now our current focus and the only thing I'm allowed to take on as a new project.
And we have another. What is the cost?
So the cost varies, and I can run back over to my pricing slide here, but really it's going to depend on the scope of work that that aligns with your business objectives. So you're seeing 4 packages on here. Again, I would say if you want to look at the first 3, that's going to give you a good kind of range of monthly cost. And again, the fixed software component of it is only going to be the $5,000 fee, and then whatever services you lean on our group for. So that's kind of the short answer or the longer answer. I guess the short answer would be I typically see the average monthly coming in around between $1,500 and $1,650. And the implementation cost really depends on your ability to self-service, which is obviously driven by the scope of work. So I would have a hard time giving a formal answer on overall project cost, but on the monthly recurring side of it, you're typically looking at between $1,500 and about $1,650 on that side of things. But obviously depends on how big or how small are we trying to scale the application.
Great, and that looks like all the questions we have, so give me 1 minute as I take back screen control.
Cool, sounds good, and thanks for the help there.
Anytime. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jack, for your informative presentation, for taking the time to be here today. And thank you everyone for attending our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys, and thanks, Jolene, for all the help.